All right, so you may never hear this again. It's an unbelievable story, but a pizza order has basically saved some lives. Yes.
There are all kinds of situations in the world that people don't want to go into for one reason or another. But one of the biggest ones is a hostage situation. Mainly because these are situations that can be very tense, change on the fly, and don't always end up with people getting out alive. But there have been times when the hostages have either outsmarted their captors or got messages out that helped them escape once the message was found. And the latter has happened more than you think. Allow us to show you 7 secret messages sent by hostages that saved lives. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
So a woman's boyfriend was allegedly holding her and her 3 children hostage, but then that mom convinced the suspect to let her use a cell phone app to order a pizza.
Number 7. Cheryl Treadway's pizza. Technology as a whole is something people either really love or really hate, and you can honestly see both sides of the issue depending on how you use it and how it affects your daily life. But in the case of Cheryl Treadway, a very low-key kind of technology saved her life. She lived in Florida when she had a major fight with her boyfriend, who happened to also be the father of her 3 kids. As things escalated, the boyfriend decided to make it a full-blown hostage situation by taking away her phone and making it very clear that any attempt to leave the house would result in violence. Cheryl knew that she had to go and take action, but she'd have to be creative about it. So she convinced her boyfriend to let her order pizza for the children via the Pizza Hut app. When she did, she made not 1 but 2 messages, making it clear that they needed to call 911. After the employee noticed this, he alerted his manager, who called the police. After a negotiation, both Cheryl and her 3 kids were released, and the boyfriend was arrested and charged with kidnapping, assault, and obstruction of justice. The manager of that Pizza Hut store said that in 28 years, she'd never seen anything like this happen. Which, if we can be honest, is a good thing.
Something in the back of my mind says something is not right. He was well dressed. That's what kind of got me, because I'm like, why is he well dressed and she is looking all disheveled and out of sorts, you know?
Number 6. Shelly of Fredericks' observation. Shelly of Fredericks was a stewardess on an airline when she noticed something odd during one particular flight. There were 2 passengers sitting side by side, a well-dressed man and a teenager who looked unkempt and arguably tortured. Concerned, Shelly went and tried to talk to the girl, but the man wouldn't allow it. Alarm bells going off in her head, Shelly got a signal to the girl to go to the bathroom. When the girl arrived, there was a note on the mirror that wanted to know if she was okay. The teenager wrote that she was in danger and the victim of a trafficker, the man in the suit. Seeing the note, Shelly went and contacted the pilot, who alerted ground authorities to what had happened. The man was arrested and the girl was freed. She was able to live the rest of her life and even went to college. She also stayed in touch with Shelly because she very much owed her life to her. After this story broke on the airwaves, various groups came together to alert both stewardesses and pilots to the sign that someone is in danger via a trafficking event. A bold initiative that likely has saved many lives, and it all started with Shelly's observation.
How do you are treated in the camp?
I get adequate food and adequate clothing and medical care when I require it.
Number 5. Jeremiah Denton's Morse code. Jeremiah Denton served in the U.S. Navy as a pilot during the Vietnam War, one of the most controversial and bloody wars in history. But for Denton, he arguably suffered a fate worse than injury or death. Because after his plane was shot down in North Vietnam, he and said crew were captured and made POWs, or prisoners of war. As you might expect, life for these prisoners was not easy, and the U.S. feared that they were being tortured for all sorts of reasons. During one point in his tenure, the Vietnamese had the idea to put Denton on camera and interview him about the conditions of the camp, likely to try and convince everyone that they were treating the prisoners fairly. But Denton wasn't about to play ball. He convinced the Vietnamese interviewer that he was sensitive to the light and thus would be blinking a lot. When he did this, he was actually blinking Morse code and said the word torture multiple times. The interview itself was being broadcast to the US, and thus the military got the message and they worked hard to try and get Denton and his crew out. It took them years, but via Operation Homecoming, they were able to get their POWs, including Denton, home, and he was rewarded with many medals for his message, heroism, and being able to endure all that he did.
The woman clearly had a black eye, and she pointed to it, and I swear she mouthed, "Help me."
Number 4. Joey Grundles Pizza Delivery. Yes, that's indeed another story about how a pizza delivery saved lives. This time, though, it happened in the weirdly named Waldo, Wisconsin, where Joey Grundle was delivering a pizza that would eventually save a woman's life. You see, when he brought the pizza that was ordered, he was confronted by a man who wouldn't let him into the house and just tried to get the pizza. As this happened, Joey saw a woman behind him in terrible shape, including having a black eye. While remaining calm, he was able to see her point to the eye and say, "Help, call the police." After completing the order, Joey got back into his car and called the police to alert them about the situation. This was very much the right move, as after they made the arrest, they found out that the woman had ordered the pizza, and then her abusive boyfriend barged in, tied her up, and made it clear that he had a gun that he would use to kill her. He was charged with assault and domestic abuse. And Joey no doubt got to tell the story of how his job saved a woman's life. The power of pizza, everyone.
She pointed to her black eye and then mouthed, "Help me."
Number 3. The Kangaroos Senses. No, this isn't about an actual kangaroo saving a life, though that would be one heck of a story, but rather about an employee at a kangaroo gas station sensing something was wrong based on the look of a young woman. At about 1 in the morning, a car came in to get some gas. As the man did so, the employee noticed that the woman in the passenger seat looked very scared. She didn't say anything, but gestured that she needed help. Picking up on those vibes, the employee called the police, who were able to get the man before things went wrong. It turned out that the young girl had been kidnapped by him. She was walking home when he offered her a ride. She originally thought he was a friend of a friend, but soon realized her mistake. Upon arriving at the gas station, she knew that the employee was her only shot at getting out of this situation. And thankfully, that employee was able to sense the meaning behind the gestures and get help.
But this guy Ortega is like, "You want a scarf? I'm your guy." And he has $85 billion in underwear money. There's gotta be some bodies in the basement. It doesn't add up.
Number 2. Zaras Labels. The next few stories aren't about hostages per se, but do involve very interesting messages that were found and influenced lives in various ways. Our first story takes us to Istanbul, where customers of the shop Zara found themselves looking at something they couldn't immediately explain. Mainly, they were seeing labels on the clothes that read, "You're about to buy this article of clothing. I made it, and I was not paid for it." These labels were put on the clothes by protesters in the form of Turkish workers who were at a factory that made clothes for Zara, among other big-name labels. Apparently, the company had not paid them for over 3 months and refused to give them severance pay when the factory shut down. While we don't know what happened to these people after this demonstration, it's clear that they got crafty in getting their messages out. Sadly, we do know that major oppression in terms of sweatshops and child labors in those shops happens all over the world to this day. So please think twice before you buy fast fashion.
It was a normal Halloween for Julie Keith, that is, until she found this letter.
Number 1. Julie's Tombstones. The final story is one about Julie Kate, a woman who went and bought a set of artificial tombstones for Halloween. As you'd expect, she found the tombstones adequate and put them out to display and then later forgot about them. Years later, as she got them back out, she realized that there was a letter within the tombstones. It was a request from someone asking her to write a letter to the Human Rights Council, and also noted that they were part of a massive work camp in China that was very much oppressing the workers. Julie believed this letter to be authentic and started making waves online to bring attention to the letter, the camp, and the oppression as a whole. Later on, the New York Times reached out to her and said they found the author of the letter, a man named Sun Yi, who had been imprisoned at the camp for his beliefs. Later on, the publicity around Julie's find led to the camp being shut down and over 160,000 prisoners being released. Sun Yi was able to meet Julie later on in Indonesia and thank her for everything she did. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the times when hostages very much put the lives of all into their hands and were able to get messages out that saved them all? Can you believe the creativity and ingenuity of these hostages? Which of these secret messages were you the most amazed at? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.